9 or upgrade to 2 dozen. $10 more. 1-800-Flowers.com. Radio icon. Enter the code HERD. In 40 minutes from now, Blazing 5, my NFL pick. We have picked 10 playoff games so far, and we have picked the winner 9 out of 10 times. It's my best playoff Blazing 5 ever. If you combine my Blazing 5 picks and our regular season picks, we were over 60%. That's as good a year as I've ever had. That gets into, Vegas sharps and professionals. We've had a great year picking games. I've thought a ton about this game. Put a small wager on it myself. Not a huge wager.
I thought you said you weren't gonna bet on the Super Bowl.
Just a little bit, not a lot. Just
I have to start getting concerned.
Glove compartment money.
Okay.
Just a 20. Just a 20. Let me say this. I understand why Cam Newton, big personality, stylish, Baker Mayfield, Aaron Rodgers, Big Ben, Jameis Winston, a lot of fun, big quotes, a lot of drama. I understand why they're popular, and they're all really talented. But I said with Baker Mayfield, for me as a GM, not draftable. You go ahead. I'm not interested. At the quarterback position, I'm looking for even keel. No peaks, no valleys. I don't care my wide receivers, my middle linebacker, my safety, my tight end, big personality guys. But this is somebody that's running my franchise. In crisis, I need him to walk into the huddle and say, shh, I got this. Rob Havenstein's a great offensive lineman for the Rams. The perception is Jared Goff doesn't have a huge personality and doesn't have a commanding presence. Against the Saints late in the game, he came into the huddle, according to Rob, and basically dropped F-bombs and said, be quiet, I'll take care of things, this is mine. Andrew Whitworth doubled down on the comments. Jared Goff is not a lot of noise, is not a lot of personality, is not a lot of drama. But he showed in crisis he can grab the room, grab the huddle. He talked about his personality at the Super Bowl earlier this week.
Something that I was kind of born with and how I grew up and how I've been. And, I probably attribute it to my parents and the way they raised me, and just try to understand that it's still just a game and have fun with it. You are who you are. I think there's plenty of different personalities around the league and at different positions. And I think, for myself personally, I like to take a certain approach just the way I am. And I know for some guys it's a different approach. And I think whatever works is what you should do.
Threw for 4,700 yards this year and 32 touchdowns. That's with a Todd Gurley, who was never the same in November and December, and losing his favorite target, Cooper Kupp, early in the year to an ACL. What he does have, though, is he has traits that I admire for a quarterback. Not everybody. Maturity, temperament, professionalism. He outplayed Drew Brees late in the Superdome. That can't be understated. And for years and years, everybody rolls their eyes. I've called it my Bore 4. Boring. Brady, Brees, Andrew Luck, and Russell Wilson. Those are my 4 favorite quarterbacks in the NFL. The Bore 4. Even temperament, an occasional fist pump. An occasional get into the huddle and drop, a word. But no quotes, even keel, even temperament. Struggled to tell a joke. These are not hip. They're not lit. They're not cool. They're not noisy. They're not loud. Sometimes I would argue they all have a little dorkiness. The Bore 4. If Jared Goff wins Sunday, I'm going to insert him and add one more quarterback. It will be called the Flat 5. Flat, even keel, no peak, no valley. It will be Brady and Goff, Brees, Russell Wilson, and Andrew Luck. I like my quarterbacks. Less ego, no quotes. Don't care if you have style. You can have a neck beard. You can be a little dorky. You don't look great at the combine in your underwear. Doesn't look like you bench press Rhode Island. I'm okay with it. I like boring. I like flat personalities. Joy Taylor with the news.
No. Turn on the news. This is the Herd Line News.
So Hines Ward won 2 Super Bowls with the Steelers and was one of the key leaders on those championship teams. But the Steelers obviously missed the playoffs this year, and Ward thinks it's because the leadership has gone away. And on top of placing blame on Mike Tomlin, he also had some words for Roethlisberger, who was his quarterback for 8 seasons in Pittsburgh. He said, when you wear that C on your jersey, that stands for a lot. It's not just what you do on the football field. Ben, you should know better. If we say we're a band of brothers, come talk to me like a brother. You don't have to put me on blast in front of the media. It seems like he picks and chooses his moments. And Ward wasn't the only Steeler who had some talking to do yesterday. Juju Smith-Schuster told ESPN, I think everyone has to stop being divas. I think we need to stop being the Kardashians and just play ball. Being in that locker room, I've learned a lot. I know I would never want to be a problem to any franchise.
I think Big Ben deserves some heat. You know, when Le'Veon Bell left, I thought it would cool down, and it didn't. It got worse. So, you know, if you have a party and the crazy guy leaves and the party gets crazier, then maybe it wasn't the crazy guy. So, Le'Veon Bell, there was a time this year when I was like, you know what? I'm not into Le'Veon Bell. But when Le'Veon left, the problems got louder. And you know what? It not only makes me think less of Ben, you know what it makes me think, Joy? I'd roll the dice on Le'Veon Bell. Le'Veon Bell got, and I was guilty. I was kind of like, this guy is just nonsense. But he left and it got worse, and I haven't heard a ton from Le'Veon Bell. Nope. He's gone to Twitter a couple times. Le'Veon Bell, Antonio Brown and Ben, I think, are a bigger part of this drama in Tomlin than Le'Veon Bell. Le'Veon Bell now, to me, is a more attractive free agent than he was in the middle of this season.
I don't know that the blame can be placed solely on one individual in this situation. I do think that Hines Ward does have a point that Ben has been there the longest, and he should be sort of the captain of the ship and steer the team in the way that the culture of the Steelers is supposed to represent.
Right.
But that's where most of the blame for me still falls on Mike Tomlin, because you are supposed to come in and establish a culture and stick to it. Just the whole idea that he was like, well, you know, as long as, you know, Antonio Brown's performing at a high level, we're going to tolerate this. Like, Antonio Brown's not going to be there forever. In your mind, if you want to be there for decades and decades, what about the next receiver that comes along? That cycle's never going to end.
Right.
So establish a culture and stick with it. So despite the fact that he is the quarterback for the Cowboys, Dak Prescott doesn't usually do a lot of public interviews, but after the announcement of Kellen Moore promoted to offensive coordinator, Dak had a lot to say.
From the time he was a player to the time now, the things he sits over there, we're watching plays, he'll draw a play up, or, hey, this is a compliment off of that. And, I mean, that was the main reason I pushed for him to be the quarterback coach in the first place, because I knew the intelligence he has in the game, how smart he is, how creative he can be. He's a phenom when it comes to the game. Honestly, just one of these young phenoms, and seeing the game, knowing where the game was and the way it's taken this transition into this new style of player, whatever you want to call it. He sees it and he gets it.
You know, here's where I'll defend all the young coaches. Is that, and I see this with my son, the internet has given kids an opportunity. You know, I used to have, my parents had encyclopedias in the house, and I would go upstairs, and my parents had National Geographic and encyclopedias, and you would learn stuff. You know, I'd sit there on a rainy day in Seattle, and I'd sit there and read that. It was harder. It is much easier for young kids. There is greater access to everything, to YouTube, to film. So a 29-year-old coach now is like a 36-year-old coach. And by the way, Belichick's 66 and as sharp as ever. We have people running for president now, Joy. Bernie Sanders is 70. Mayor Bloomberg is 70. People eat better, nutrition, education. I look at these young I'm not saying they're all going to work. I'm not saying you got to have the right personality and the alpha in you. I'm not sure if Cliff Kingsbury's going to work. I'm not sure if the kid Matt LaFleur is going to work in Green Bay. But this idea that 29 scares us, 29 is 34 now. 29 is 35, and I don't have a problem with it.
I also think that there's an element of being able to relate to the players more, and that's being valued more than it used to be.
They're more empowered. They make more money.
You need to get in line and get with the system, and this is how we do things, and this is my system, and if you don't fit in, you got to go. Right. And now people are realizing, you know, talent kind of matters if you want to win in any league. And if you want to keep the talent, you need to keep them happy. It's not all just about X's and O's. There has to be a relationship there. And I think that's part of what happened in Green Bay. Yeah. Once you stop being able to communicate and relate to each other, the relationship deteriorates, and that's not a recipe for success. Finally, Kyrie Irving seems to be changing his tune a little bit. It was just a few months ago when he told fans at TD Garden that he was planning on re-signing with the team. With his contract set to expire at the end of the season, Kyrie was asked if he still intends to re-sign with the Celtics in free agency.
Yeah.
And his answer was, ask me July 1st. At the end of the day, I'm going to do what's best for me and my career. I don't owe anybody bleep.
He's right. He doesn't owe anybody bleep.
He doesn't. But
he's a little, I would say he's a little flaky. We've talked about this week.
We did.
Kyrie Irving has already told everybody, he said this, I'm not going to play forever. He's not Kobe. He doesn't want to play for 20 years. And he's also a world-class player. He's one of the 10 best basketball players in the world. He has a right to do whatever he wants to do. I have a right to move to companies when my contract ends. Why doesn't an NBA player?
I have no problem with any NBA player changing teams at any point. There is no loyalty on the organizational side to players.
Right.
So I don't know why there's an expectation from players to be loyal to organizations. Now, if you put the fans in it, that adds an extra element, of course, but people have to do what's best for their families, their careers, and their legacies. And if that's what they feel is best, you can't tell them what to do.
For the record, if I was Kyrie, I would not leave Brad Stevens. That would not be my recommendation, but it was also my recommendation I wouldn't leave LeBron James. So he could go 0 for 2 in my eyes, but I'll fight forever for an athlete's right to choices because the owners and the GMs and the coaches move constantly.
What if he's leaving Brad Stevens for Kevin Durant?
Hey, will we report it? Yeah, it'll be interesting. I'll be all over it. Joy with the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd Lie News.
Well, I mean, it's funny when we think of